Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Alhamdulillah pagi ini kita akan ada sesi Clinical Pathological Conference oleh unit pembedahan spinal, Jabatan Ortopedik dan Traumatologi. Mohon izin untuk menyampaikan sesi ini dalam bahasa Inggeris. So we are very fortunate that this morning we will have the CPC from the spine unit of the Department of Orthopedic and Traumatology. The title of our CPC is Cracking the Code, Understanding the Snap Dog Neck. Then you will understand when we use this title, okay? So we have speakers who will elaborate on a case, and we are very fortunate to have Dr. Juliana, who's from the Department of Radiology, and also Puan Siti Salmiah, who's from the Department of Medical Rehabilitation. She is a physiotherapist. And after this session, we will have a quiz. And as you can see, there are 3 hampers to be won. So please concentrate. I was told the Gen Z, the concentration time of Generation Z is only 8 seconds. And it is the same as a goldfish. But I do not know how they measure the concentration time of a goldfish. Yeah. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Nazrin to present the history and the physical examination of this patient. Okay, Dr. Nazrin.
Thank you, Prof. Sabarul, for inviting me to the stage. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning to professors, consultants, specialists, fellow medical officers, and all dear medical students. So my discussion today will focus more on history and clinical examination with regards to our topics today. So moving on, our patient is Mr. MF, who is a 37-year-old gentleman without any medical illness. He previously worked as a landscaper in Genting. So why I would like to highlight his occupation is because we have to know how his job or activity relates to his symptoms, and with pertaining to his background of socio-economic and so on. Alright, so in this case, his chief presenting complaint was persistent low back pain for the past 5 years, which he described as dull in nature, lasts around 15 to 20 minutes. So his pain score average around 5 to 6 and sometimes peak at 8. He described the pain as partially relieved with rest, and sometimes he has to resort to occasional analgesics. It's important to know that this patient, he doesn't have any pain upon lying flat. And this pain further is aggravated with movement, heavy activity, prolonged sitting and standing. So what does this tell us? This is more towards the instability type of pain, which is I would like to highlight here. Otherwise, there is no radiating pain. Okay, moving on to his progression or his causes of his symptom. So he started in around mid-2019, whereby he lifted around 50 kilogram fertilizer, and suddenly he heard a pop sound in the back. So the pain started immediately, and he went to local GP and subsequently was referred to private center, where he was admitted for a couple of days, was given pain management therapy, which include physiotherapy and also analgesia. Subsequently, he followed up under this private center, and he did multiple spine injection, particularly radiofrequency ablation throughout 2019-2024. But despite this multiple spine injection, it only helps temporary. I mean, it's only produced temporary relief for the patient, because after the injection, last around few months, the pain started to recur back. And this have significant effect in his daily life and activity, whereby he cannot go back to his previous occupation, and he has to resort to light duty, frequent sick leave, and also affecting his daily life. So subsequently in 2024, he was referred to spine team here, SUKM. Okay, it's important to exclude all the red flags in low back pain, which in this case, this patient have no night pain, no bladder or bowel dysfunction, no profound motor or sensory weakness, no loss of appetite or weight, no prolonged fever, cough or night sweats, and no other joint pain. Because if, let's say, the patient came to us with a red flag sign, it's important to immediately investigate and further work up on these red flags. Okay, with regards to the clinical examination, so in this case, there's a reduced range of motion. More importantly, there's a reduced flexion and extension of this patient due to the pain. Also, there's a tenderness around the lumbosacral region during motion. Otherwise, there's no step deformity, no swelling, no bruises. Neurological examination otherwise unremarkable. There's no motor weakness or sensory weakness. Otherwise, the rest of neurological examination also normal. So, after we know our history and clinical examination, so it's important to know, to have in our mind a few sets of differential diagnosis. Again, I would like to reiterate, it's important to rule out any red flag sign, and also the clinical findings, for example, in this patient is usually vague, and thus we need to exclude other differential, which is, of course, include our PID, fractures of other parts of vertebra, and obviously benign tumors or malignancies. But in this patient, since he doesn't have any red flag sign, it will be very unlikely. Alright, so the next step will be our radiological investigation. Okay, so with that, I would like to invite Dr. Juliana Fairuz, to our musculoskeletal radiologist, to continue our discussion.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. So first of all, thank you to the organizing committee for inviting me for today's CPC. So this is the outline of presentation. Basically, we are going to see any key principles of the pars fracture, a bit of the imaging for the pars fracture, and at the end is the imaging pearls. Alright, so the key principles in seeing the pars fracture is basically a lumbar spine. As you know, a basic radiograph will be an AP, anterior posterior, or a lateral radiograph, but often we can miss things in this basic AP or lateral. So oblique views can then see the pars fracture in particular. And the anatomy looks very different. In radiology, it's the utmost important to familiarize yourself with the anatomy. Being it, especially in oblique, then you have a certain anatomy that you need to familiarize with what is normal and what is not. So this is exactly to avoid the misinterpretation or misfracture. And exactly, you need to tailor what is the clinical findings. Hence, our normal important phrase would be suggest clinical correlation. This is actually asking yourself what is actually the clinical indication on what you want to see. Then you can order the radiograph pertaining to the clinical indications. So, this is way back in 1941. This is an editorial by Howard et al. It's a published article to see the importance of oblique radiograph in spine. So, this is actually at most importance that the oblique radiograph is to see the facets, the intervertebral foramina, and as well as the pars interarticularis. So, this is back then. So fast forward, the clinical indication for lumbar spine oblique views would be to visualize the articular facet, the pars interarticularis, definitely, to see any fracture of the pars, okay? And when doing a procedure such as epidural steroid injection, you can also use this oblique view. So how to do it? Basically, you come to the radiology department and you are being placed in two positions, whether it's erect or supine. So you can see from the images in blue scrubs, this patient is standing obliquely orientated, 35 to 45 degree. Our field of view is T12L1 until L5S1. Okay, so the X-ray tube is just pointed towards anteriorly. So this is an anterior oblique radiograph. As opposed to this one, this patient is in supine, this is supine projection. So you can either tilt it supine anterior, or you can also do a posterior oblique as well. So this is the radiograph. So this is the patient's radiograph, Mr. MF. So this is a lateral view. So you can see the lateral view, certain things that you need to report on the lateral view. Definitely just see the diagram here. This is pointing to you the central canal. So central canal is actually a line depicting the posterior vertebral aspect here. So any disruption on these posterior vertebral lines means there is a suspicion of spondylolisthesis, being it anteriorly or posteriorly, or we call it retrolisthesis. So in this patient, preserved lumbar lordosis, you agree? Right? There is no listhesis at all. Next, this patient has an oblique view. So you can appreciate what is the difference between an oblique view and a lateral view. You can appreciate the scotidoc. So in here, highlighted here, the scotidoc is well seen and there is a pars fracture here. So let's normalize ourselves with the scotidoc view. So this is a zoom in picture with the cute little dog around there. So let's look at what is the number shows us. So number 1, which is the nose, this is the transverse process. Number 2 would be the pedicle, right? Superior articular facet is number 3. Number 6 is the inferior articular facet. And the 4 is our neck, which is the pars interarticularis. Number 5 is our lamina. Number 7 would be the spinous process. 8, interlaminar space. And your number 9, intervertebral disc. Okay. So basically in our patient, what is being highlighted in the blue arrow here is the lucency traversing the neck of the scotidoc, which is at the region of pars interarticularis, which is here. Alright, everybody can appreciate, yeah? So this patient was subjected for a CT. You can appreciate that the CT has higher resolution, definitely with the expense of radiation, but it's important to see the configuration of the fracture. So you can appreciate from the CT here on sagittal view, there's disruption of the pars interarticularis fracture here. And you can also do a reconstruction in axial view as well as coronal view. So in blue arrow here, I'm just showing you that a normal pars interarticularis is continuously seen here. Lower down where there is a defect, this patient has bilateral pars interarticularis fracture. So this is an MRI view. This patient also underwent an MRI view. This is a T2 sagittal view. T2 is very important to see fluid. So all fluid in T2 signal intensity is to be hyper intense, which is white. So you can see here at the region of L5S1, the fluid intensity within the disc is homogeneous. There is no abnormal intensity. It's maintaining and preserving its hyperintensity, which is the fluid within the nucleus pulposus. This view on the axial here, just wanted to show how a disc looks like. And the arrow is pointing to you, the pars interarticularis. So definitely just wanted to highlight here that MRI is superior to see the soft tissue differentiation. However, the pars interarticularis fracture is more superior seen or higher resolution seen in the CT. Alright. So another imaging modality that was performed for this patient is the flexion and extension. So what is the indication for these special views is to see the stability of the spine. So in this patient, again, remember our posterior vertebral lines. So there should be any translation that is significant of 3 mm translating during extension and flexion. However, let's zoom in. In our patient, there is none. There is no translation of the vertebra. The vertebra of L5 is stably located on our X-ray here. Okay. So, final slide. Always remember to look at pars fracture. It's better to order your oblique views, right? Or maybe you can add on flexion and extension to see the stability of your spine. Nose what's normal. Basically, always remember your scotidoc. Normal structure is very important in radiology, and tailor the view to the clinical question. And with that, thank you so much. I will then pass to the next presenter, Dr. Afif.
Okay, I hope you guys still okay. So we'll continue with the next topic, which I'll present about the principle of treatment in pars fracture. All right. So an overview about the treatment. So as you can see here, how do we approach a case of a pars fracture? First, we need to stage the patient. Okay. So we stage the patient whether it's acute or chronic. For example, in our patient here, the symptoms have been there for about 5 years, since 2019. So we consider it as a chronic stage or later stage. As well as we should see whether if there's any translation. As Dr. Juliana mentioned, in our case, we don't have any translation. We have to see the degree of the listhesis. And then we go by symptoms. Again, in our patient, he has very bad instability pain. He has been taking multiple injections, spinal injections for that. Okay, so we consider the patient as symptomatic. And it has disturbed his activity level. He was unable to work anymore after that, since the fracture. Okay, so as any other cases in orthopedics, we always have an option whether it's either conservative or surgical management. Okay, as our senior surgeons or ancestors have said, the best surgeons are the one who knows when not to operate. Okay, so I'll explain later about the conservative and surgical management, and the aim or the goal of the treatment. As we all know, it's a past fracture, it's a fracture. So same goes to if you have a fracture in upper limb or in our lower limbs. Okay, we put split or cast or plating. The aim is so that we stabilize the fracture, okay, so that it can unite or it can heal, so that patient have pain relief and at the end can return to his or her activity. So these are the modalities of conservative management that we can advise to the patient. Number one is lifestyle modification, and importantly, in past fracture, we need to avoid extension. Okay, why extension? Because it causes a shear force. Okay, shear force at the fracture site. Thus, it causes movement there and it becomes unstable, and it will further increase the risk of non-union or healing of the fracture. Bracing is one of the modality to immobilize the spine externally. However, it does not immobilize the L5 level as for in our patient. It is we can use it in a higher or upper lumbar fractures. Okay, physiotherapy is very important because core muscle and back muscles are the main muscles that helps in sagittal balance or maintaining your sagittal balance. So if you have a very strong core abdominal muscles at the front, it prevents your body from leaning backwards. And you have a strong back muscles, it prevents your body from hunching forward. Thus, it helps to reduce the load on your spine. It shares the load. Okay, for example, your upper body weight is about 30 to 40 kilos. This instead of everything goes to your spine, some of it will share through the muscle. So maybe about 50 or 60% goes to your bone. The other load will go through your muscles. Okay, so because of patient having pain, so we aid the patient with multimodal analgesia and we wait for the fusion about 3 to 6 months. So when do we go for surgery? So if you fail conservative management for 6 months, okay, if there's progressive translation, meaning the movement of the vertebra above and below, okay, and if he has persistent back pain, this in the case of our patient, okay, 5 years, okay, the pain hasn't resolved even a bit, and in patients, in high athletes who needs early physiotherapy. Okay, so what can we offer to the patient? It can be either a direct past repair, meaning we spare the vertebra above and below. We do not fuse the other vertebrae, or a spinal fusion. Okay, so what are the options we have in past repair? So the aim of all these 4 techniques is to immobilize the fracture site. Okay, so you can see in number 1, so the buck screw. Okay, so they put a screw from the lamina into the pedicle. So this is the fracture. So the aim is to stabilize this segment here. Number 2, the Scott wiring, where we put a wire to the bilateral transverse process and to the spinous process. The aim is also the same, to immobilize the pus. And see where we put a lamina hook fixation, where we put this is the lamina and this is the hook going down the lamina. We put 2 pedicle screws here and connect it with the rod to immobilize this segment here, okay, the pus. And finally, another technique that they show is this pedicle and a U-shaped wire or U-shaped rod. So we put 2 pedicle screws and a rod beneath the spinous process. All these 4 techniques has the same aim, is to immobilize the fracture, to promote the healing of the fracture. So in cases where they have very bad listhesis, translation, or spondyloptosis, okay, there's a role for spinal fusion where you can pull back the bone and we fuse. However, the downside of it is we have fused this part, therefore it works as one vertebra, okay. So we have reduced the motion of this vertebra. So what will happen is later on, if we fuse, the vertebra or the disc below or the joint here and the joint above have to do extra work because this joint is not working anymore. We have fused this joint. Understand? So because in young patients, we try as much to preserve the motion segment. If not, they will have early spondylosis. Okay. So what did we do? Let me show you a video. Yes. Okay. So first we mark the level at the level of L5 because we don't plan to fuse, so we just approach to this level. Okay. So we can minimize the skin incision, thus reduce the pain post-operatively. Okay. So we do a midline incision. Alright. And in this case, because it's a case of non-union, it has been there for 5 years. Okay. So we open from skin down to bone, down to the periosteum, using sharp dissection. Okay, we tend to reduce the amount of cautery diatomy usage to preserve the blood supply to the bone, to increase the fusion rate. Okay, so you see we still using sharp dissection to open, okay, to preserve the blood supply. Alright, so we tag the fascia here to help us to see the bone more clearly. Alright, so that's the spinous process there. So we go to the right and to the left side. Okay, so we open up. Okay, so we use a corpse to go down to the lamina and transverse process. So this is how we prepare the pedicle screw. So we use an opener to break the cortex. Then we use a finder. We use a burr to break the cortex, and then we use the finder to find the pedicle. Alright. So that's the pedicle screw there. Okay. So this is the lamina hook. So we hook it down the lamina. Okay. Like that. So now it's beneath the lamina. Next we measure the rod, and this is the rod that will connect the pedicle screw and the lamina. So as you can see from here, we are doing the lamina hook technique. As you can see in the picture before, it's the alphabet C. Okay, so we do the same procedure over the other side. So this is where we have to clear out the non-union side. Okay, we have to clear all the fibrous tissue to promote healing there, to prepare bed for the healing, for the fusion. So now we are taking a autologous bone graft again, from the pelvic, okay, from the iliac crest to put at the fracture site. Okay, so this is what I want to show you. I think the most important part. From radiologically, what Dr. Jariash has showed, in flexion and extension view, patient doesn't have any instability, right? Okay, but patient have a very bad instability pain, so bad that he cannot work after the fracture has occurred, right? Okay, so you can see here, I'll show you. Okay, so you can see here, when we move the spinous process, it's very unstable. You can see it moves and it's not connected to the vertebra down and below. Okay, again, you can see it's moving by itself, meaning that it's very unstable, right? So you can see the difference after we fix. When we try to pull, it moves, the whole thing moves, even the adjacent vertebra. Okay, right? Everybody's clear about that, eh? Okay. So we took an autograph from the iliac crest to put at the fracture site to promote healing, right? So this autologous bone graft that we took from the iliac crest has an osteogenesis effect because it's a very fresh marrow. Okay, so in order to help or increase the fusion rate in this type of cases, we also used an infused bone graft, which is a BMP. Okay, so this BMP has will aid in the bone healing because it has the osteoconductive and also osteoinductive effects. So this patient, we have all these three mechanism of aid to help to fuse the bone, to increase the rate of healing. Okay, because it's a case of non-union. So in a fresh case, we may not need all this. Okay, because it's a non-union, thus we aid using this technique. So at 3 months post-op, what happens? This is the X-ray at 3 months post-op. So you can see here, okay, the zoom part there. You can barely see any fracture lines. Okay, it's very well united. Okay, and you can see here. Okay, the patient is smiling. So that's we want to see at 3 months post-op. From 5 years of misery, okay, to this smiley face. Okay, even the smile can make all of you smile, right? Okay, very good. So, all right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So finally, the message that I want to tell you guys is that, remember, even though we are orthopedic surgeons, we don't always perform surgery on patients. We choose our patients. There's always an option of conservative rather than surgery. Surgery is done only when clinically indicated. And all these 4 repair techniques, why don't we just do past repair in all patients is because actually the fusion rate reported in papers is that the fusion rate is about 40 to 60%. However, with the aid of the autologous and BMP, the rate increases about 80%. However, the fusion rate of a spinal fusion is about more than 90%. But the last point here, we need to balance between the fusion rate and also we want to preserve the motion segment of the spine. Okay. Another point that I want to mention is that Dr. Juliana has showed the MRI. You remember? Dr. Juliana showed that the disc above and below is pristine. It's very watery. Okay, I could say you can see the white disc, meaning it's a very healthy disc. A black disc is a bad disc. It's a degenerated disc. So if we fuse the spine, we have wasted this healthy disc. We have fused the segment and the disc will be malfunctioned even though it's very pristine. Okay, and that's why we opted for the past repair other than spinal fusion. Okay, for that I'll pass to the next presenter, Dr. Vignes.
Very good morning to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Afif, for the good explanation on the management part. So now we are moving on to the physiotherapy, which is the core fundamental for all back pain. Okay, so I'll be presenting on the basic core muscle strengthening in low back pain. So what is the core? So core we divided into 2. So first is the superficial core muscles and deep core muscles. In superficial core muscles, as you can see in this image, it consists of external oblique muscles, rectus abdominis, and internal oblique muscles. And deep core muscle consists of transverse abdominis. So all these muscles, their function is actually for stability, posture, and also spinal support. So why actually we have to strengthen the core? First, we have to improve the spinal alignment and posture, and it reduces the load on the lumbar spine. And it also enhances the muscle coordination, and follows, it actually decreases the recurrence of low back pain. So the basic principle of the core strengthenings are, we have to begin with low load and high control exercises, and we emphasize on neutral spine and correct form, and it progresses slowly to dynamic movements and includes both endurance and strength. So we always must start with simple controlled movements. Don't rush progression, and quality matters more than quantity in core work. This actually is the thing actually taken from a very good article which is written by Doctor of the Physical Therapy, Dr. Cameron Gill. Okay, next is a very important agenda in our presentation today. Okay, this is a live demonstration by our physiotherapist. So I'm pleased to introduce someone special to us today, Puan Siti Salmia, a dedicated physiotherapist and a talented Sukma hockey player. With her experience in both sports and rehabilitation, she will guide us through some basic core muscle exercises that help build strength and improve posture. So, yeah. And also, we also warmly welcome Mr. Bryce, the president of the UKM Students Surgical Society, who will be assisting as the model for the demonstration. Yeah, please welcome. Okay, let's give them both a round of applause as they begin. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi. Okay, saya akan bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu supaya mudah nak faham dan you all boleh catch up. Okay, so patient sakit post-op, so kita akan buat basic exercise. The principle is low load, okay, tapi high impact. Okay, the first thing is breathing exercise. Okay, bengkokkan lutut dua-dua. Okay. Kenapa kita bengkokkan lutut? Sebab kita nak kurangkan tekanan pada tulang belakang. Okay, good. Okay. Sekarang, cuba tarik nafas ikut hidung. Hembus ikut mulut. Okay, good. Tarik nafas. Hembus. Okay. So, kita akan nampak dia akan tarik nafas menggunakan a lot of apical part. Okay, sekarang kita nak concentration ada lumbar part. Okay, maaf saya letak tangan. Okay, tarik nafas ikut hidung. Cuba kembungkan perut, tolak tangan saya. Tarik nafas, hembus, turunkan. Okey. So bila dia tarik nafas, kembungkan perut, kita panggil dia bracing. Okey. Tarik nafas, kembungkan perut. Okey, hembus nafas, kempiskan balik perut. That's good. Okey, one more time. Tarik nafas dan hembus. Okey. So kenapa kita improvekan tarik nafas, kembungkan perut? Sebab kita nak increasekan intra-abdominal pressure. So, bila kita tarik nafas, kita akan adakan static movement untuk trunk extension. Okay? Tapi kalau bila dia buat hollowing, hembus nafas, masukkan perut ke dalam, dia akan improvekan trunk flexion. Okay? So, sekarang kita akan pergi ke next level exercise. Okay? So, satu kaki. Okay, sekarang kita gerakkan kaki kanan dahulu. Okay, perlahan-lahan, cuba luruskan kaki kanan. Okay? Sekarang perlahan-lahan bengkokkan kembali kaki kanan. That's good. Okay, sekarang tukar kaki. That's good. Okay. Bengkokkan kaki. Good. Okay, kita akan buat dalam 10 repetition. Kenapa kita nak aktifkan the lower core muscles? Okay. So bila patient dah boleh buat, kita akan progression. Okay. Sekarang bengkokkan dua-dua lutut, angkat kaki. Dua-dua. Okay, that's good. Okay. Kaki ni angkat. Okey. Boleh tahan? Okey, dalam kiraan 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okey, perlahan-lahan turunkan. That's good. Okey. Ulang sekali lagi. Perlahan-lahan angkat lutut and hold it for 10 second. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, good. And down. Okay. Tadi kita start dengan heel slide Lepas tu kita progress dengan reverse crunch. Kenapa kita tak buat sit up? Okay, kalau kita buat sit up, kita increasekan pressure pada tulang belakang. So kita kena buat reverse. Okay. So kita activatekan pelvic floor dengan lower abdominal muscles. Okay. So bila dah buat ni, kita progress. Okay. The best thing is the ball. Okay. Okay, buka kaki. Okay, good. Okay, syarat dia kaki jangan buka. Ni. Okay, kaki mesti in natural position. Kalau dibuka, hip dah jadi external rotate. Kita in natural position. Okay. Perlahan-lahan, cuba kepit bola semampu yang boleh. That's good. Hold it 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay. Kepit. Good. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay, one more time. Hold it. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Good. Okay. Now we go for next. Okay. Okay, sekarang ni, okay. Arahan saya, tapak kaki, pijak katil. Okay, perlahan-lahan angkat pinggul. Jangan pinggang. Pinggang tak nak angkat pinggul Okay, it's good. Tapak kaki pijak, angkat pinggul. Okay, it's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and bring it down slowly. Bring it down slowly. That's good. Okay. Tapak kaki pijak katil, angkat punggung. Good. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. And one more times. Let's go. Up. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay. After kita dah buat ni, okay, patient dah dapat kekuatan the lower abs, so kita akan guna the whole abs. Okay, so kita akan angkat badan ke atas Okay, it's good. Tapak kaki pijak katil, angkat punggung. Okay, angkat badan semampu yang boleh. That's good. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold it and bring your body down slowly. Body dulu. Body turun perlahan. Baru punggung. That's right. Good. One more time. Tapak kaki pijak katil, angkat punggung dan angkat badan. That's right. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Slowly turunkan badan dahulu. Okay. Baru turunkan punggung. That's right. Boleh? Okay. It's good. Okay. Now sekarang saya nak you berniharap. Face down. Okay. 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 Good. Okay. Siapa familiar dengan Superman? Okay. So, patient, kita nak activate the core muscles. Okay, kalau kita nak buat bird dog, too high. Sebab dia center of gravity tinggi. So, kita start dengan prone position. Okay, stay, tangan kat depan. Good. Okay, sebelah lagi dua-dua. Okay, good. Dahi dekat sini. Good, dahi dekat sini. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, rest. Tangan kanan, cuba luruskan, capai dan angkat ke atas. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Jangan ke kepala. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay, now change your hand. That's right. Up. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. So usually we do 10 times. Kalau kestabilan atas dah bagus, baru kita start dengan kaki. Okay, sekarang kita akan buat kaki. Dengar arahan saya. Okay, kaki kanan. Luruskan lutut. Perlahan-lahan angkat off peg saja. Sikit je. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay, change your leg. It's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay, bila progression patient bagus, kita akan buat oblique. Okay. Sekarang angkat tangan kanan, kaki kiri. Good. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and change. Tangan kiri, kaki kanan. Good. Not too high. Sebab you ada rotation. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. So, patient settle, bagus, kontrol bagus, otot bagus, so kita progress. Okay, sekarang dua-dua tangan ke atas, cuba capai. It's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Sekarang dua-dua kaki luruskan, cuba angkat. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. So patient boleh buat, so kita progress. Now you perform a Superman, can? Both hand and both leg. Okay. Up. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and rest. Okay. Faham? Okay, so kita kena progress dia slow. Kita tengok patient punya orientation macam mana, kekuatan otot dia macam mana, baru kita progress. Kalau tak, kita kena back satu. Sebab nak perform exercise yang macam ni, kena tengok upper part dia macam mana, lower part dia macam mana, kestabilan dia dan juga kesakitan. Ingat, kita kena buat exercise untuk kuatkan otot, bukan nak sakitkan dia. Okay? Okay, thank you. Okay,
thank you Puan Salmia and Mr. Bryce for the live demonstration. Now moving on to Dr. Hafiz for his presentation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good morning. So I'm Dr. Ahmad Hafiz. So today I'll be talking about summary of pars interarticularis fracture. So basically you have the whole slides from the our patients, from the history, imaging and the treatment. So basically this is the summary of what is pars interarticularis fracture. All right. So what is pars interarticularis? So pars interarticularis is a Latin word. So pars means means area or part. Inter is also Latin, means between, and articularis or articulare, which is in Latin also means articular or joint surface. So what is pars interarticularis? So from this picture we can see is part of a bone in the spine is between the superior and inferior facets of vertebra. So this is a 3D pictures. So you can see this is a posterior view of the spine. In the middle one is an oblique view of a spine. Why this is an oblique view? Because we can see a picture of a Scotty dog. And the most lateral side is a lateral view of a spine. So from the lateral view, you cannot see a Scotty dog. Only on oblique view Scotty dog. Alright? And then from the middle picture here, you can see the pars interarticularis is at the neck of a Scotty dog. So what is the function of interarticularis? What is so important about that? We've been discussing about this. So its main function is the maintain stability of the spine, especially during spine extension and rotation. Okay, I highlight this extension. All right. So it links the two facet joints. Why I'm highlighting the extension? So in a patient with having a low back pain, you have to get a history of whether the patient have hyperextension movement, continuously hyperextension movement, especially in an athlete where they carry heavy weight and lead to hyperextension, then lead to back pain, chronic back pain. You have to suspect pars interarticularis. So the definition of pars interarticularis fracture is a break in the pars interarticularis. It can be due to stress or trauma.
So the mechanism of the pars interarticularis fracture is due to hyperextension of the trunk or torso and also rotation injury. So initially when they get this fracture, it can be asymptomatic. Because why is asymptomatic? Because it's just a stress fracture. Okay. So and then when it comes to chronic pain, it becomes a symptom. The symptom is due to instability pain. So causes can be due to repetitive stress, especially in athletes, due to trauma, and also degenerative changes due to weakening of bone. So what are the types of pars interarticularis fracture? So we have the term called as spondylolysis, spondylolisthesis, spondyloptosis. Okay, it sounds quite confusing, but the difference only at the back of the words. So what does it mean by spondylo? All these three words have spondylo. Spondylo means vertebra. Okay, so what is spondylolysis? Spondylolysis, which is there's a fracture in the vertebra without slippage. Okay, this is the picture of the spondylolysis present of pars interarticularis fracture, but there is no movement or no listhesis of the vertebra. What is spondylolisthesis? This is fracture of the pars interarticularis, which lead to anterolisthesis or anterior slippage of the vertebra. What is spondyloptosis? When the anterolisthesis is 100% or more compared to the caudal vertebra. What does it mean by caudal vertebra? Caudal vertebra, we need to compare the vertebra which is listhesis, compare it to the below vertebra. Alright? So, spondylolisthesis grading is by Meerding classification. We have 5 grading. So how do we divide the classification? Okay, this is a picture of L5 and the sacrum. So we look at the superior surface of the sacrum and we divide it into 4 segments. So in a grade 1, the listhesis is between 0 to 25%. In the grade 2, 25 to 50, grade 3, 50 to 75, and grade 4, 75 to 100%. Sorry, and grade 5 is more than 100%. So in grade 4, we also call as spondyloptosis. Okay, this is spondyloptosis, 100% slippage of anterior vertebra. So in spondyloptosis, when we do a true AP view of lumbar vertebra, we can see an inverted Napoleon head sign. Alright? So this is quite a common question in OSCE. Oh, sorry. So this is the Napoleon head from the AI picture. So when we inverted it, you can see in the middle picture, inverted. See this triangle below here? This is the inverted Napoleon head sign. Alright? Napoleon Bonaparte is a French leader from 18th century. Okay? Alright. So the clinical symptoms of the pars interarticularis fracture is lower back pain. It can be localized or radiating, and pain worsen on extension, presence of the mesospasm with or without the neurological deficit. If presence of neurological deficits, meaning there is a listhesis which lead to nerve root compression. Okay. So what imaging you need to order? You can do AP and lateral view and oblique view to look at the broken neck of Scotty dog. Okay, highlight his neck of Scotty dog to look for the pars interarticularis fracture, and then a dynamic X-ray of flexion and extension. So on flexion and extension, we consider as instability when there is movement more than 3 mm. And then CT scan to look for the fracture configurations. So what are the treatments? So when you get the pars interarticularis fracture, In an acute case, you can treat with conservative management. Why conservative management? Because the healing rate is 73% if you detect early in acute phase. This is stated by Morita et al. In a paper on 2023. However, if you detect it quite late, which is 3 or 6 months later, the healing rate drop into 35%. Okay, the message here is to detect it early and treat conservative first. So how do you treat conservative? First, with bracing, make sure patient has MC, rest, and activity modification. The activity modification means make sure patient do not do any hard activity, long walking, running, everything have to stop. How long? 3 to 6 months. And then pain management, and then physical therapy showed by Mr. Bryce just now, exactly like that. And then if we monitor the patient still having a chronic back pain, and we can prove the presence of instability pain on examination and on imaging, we have to opt for pars repair or fusion surgery. All right, that's all.
Okay, thank you to all the presenters, and also thank you to Bryce, and congratulations to Bryce being accepted to do his elective in Taiwan. So if you practice that physio, you don't need to buy a plane ticket. You can fly to Taiwan. Okay, any question from the floor? Tak ada mic. Siti Samiah, mana kau punya? Yes, Azwan. So preferably do not fuse. Repair the fracture. Multiple level can. You repair the fracture. The principle is to repair. Fusion is considered the last alternative, kan? If you have problem with the knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, painful, then you fuse. Kan? It's a salvage. But now people tends to not fuse. So that's why you have joint replacement. Faham? So in past, repair the past as soon as possible. So in athletes, the demand is slightly different. So I think if athlete, there's no role of conservative, especially competitive athletes. So fuse as soon as possible. Make sure there is fusion. So maybe you have to use the BMP or those things. Because by BMP, by 3 months, they will fuse. Because you all have all those 3 osteoinductive, osteoconductive, and osteogenic punya factors, kan? They will fuse. Then after that, you can start. Okay, next thing is, yes. Apa? Faith. Faith.
Okay, if I may answer that. Okay, I think that's a very interesting question by Prof. Kamal. Most probably, we think that it doesn't move that apparently on the X-ray is because there's fibrosis at the fracture site, meaning it heals by soft tissue, by the fibrosis. That is what's holding on to the fracture. However, because of the instability, we still proceed with the operation. Because the other stabilizers of the spine, as you all know, there's still the anterior longitudinal ligament in front. The disc is still pristine, still holding on to the body of the vertebra. The PLL we cannot, we didn't see much, but we think because the pressure is more at the back, so I think the PLL, the posterior longitudinal ligament, still holding on to the vertebra as well. That's what's holding on to the spine at that point of time. I hope that answers your question, bro.
Come, face, come. So yeah, that's the answer. So if you look on the images, we can demonstrate there's instability intraoperatively. Okay, but this is another thing which okay, I think this is more into a higher level of understanding of instability. So if you look, properly, but this is postgraduate, instability has always been defined as translation of 3 millimeters. Okay, so everybody takes that. But if you look properly in the flexion and extension view, if you look at the back, nampak? The tip of the inferior border of the upper vertebra dengan the tip of the posterior border of the lower vertebra. Masa extension macam ni, masa flexion macam ni. So it's actually open up. So this patient doesn't have translational instability. He has the open up instability, which is demonstrated intraoperatively. Okay. So standard teaching, they say translation kan. So this patient doesn't have translational instability, but because it's unstable, but because the disc is still pristine, as shown dalam MRI ni kan. So because it is still soft, so if we don't treat it early, eventually it will become a spondylolisthesis. Okay, so that's why you treat early, you prevent from spondylolisthesis. Okay, because there's so many excessive movement on that disc, so it become degenerated. Okay. Okay. Any other question? Ada soalan? Then if not, I'll invite Dr. Vinesh untuk conduct the sekarang we ask you. Okay. And there are 3 prizes to be given away. Vinesh?
All right, so congratulations. So now we call upon Prof. Sabarul to the stage to...
Okay, so thank you everyone. I hope this CPC is beneficial for you. So remember about pars interarticularis, the Scotty dog and the inverted Napoleon hat sign. Those who do not know Napoleon, there are movies on Netflix kan, I think. HBO or something lah about Napoleon. By Joaquin Phoenix. I think so. Okay, thank you very much everyone. Wabillahi taufiq hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nak ambil gambar tak ramai-ramai? Boleh? Jom kita beratur depan, speakers. Student semua ke depan, please. Kita ambil gambar group. Ke depan. Speaker semua line sana. First line. Syafiq, masuk tak? Kamal.